This week I want to talk a little bit about the material impact of technical documentation on the through life maintenance costs of a platform. And this is essentially an extract from what I talked about at TDW-Live at the back end of last year. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about how I believe good, bad, indifferent attitudes towards technical documentation has a real meaningful impact on those costs that I've just talked about. Now, why I wanted to do this is because I believe there's a real lack of metrics out there in terms of how technical documentation fits in that whole product support kind of formula. But we hear lots and lots of anecdotal discussion that goes on about how if we focus on creating modular data, it's going to save us a stack load of money. If we focus on reuse, it's going to save us a stack of money. If we focus on using XML or this standard or that specification, it's going to save us a stack of money. But as far as I'm aware, nobody has actually put any real academic kind of thought behind that. So I wanted to challenge the role of technical documentation, and I wanted to challenge how that materially impacts the maintenance costs of a product. Now, in order to do that, first of all, I needed a platform and I needed some base metrics to get me going so I could start putting together a formula that made sense, that we could then plug in a load of numbers and hopefully a percentage saving or cost saving would come out the back end. Now, to get to the product, I had my latest copy of the Decider magazine delivered back in July, I think this was. And I was always thinking about putting this together because I get more and more frustrated when I hear about people saying, you know, S1000D saves money, or modular data saves money, or using XML saves money, and yet nobody points at any real data. When I picked up the Decider magazine in July 2017, this is the December issue, there was a platform in there. It was an article by somebody in the Royal Navy who was talking about the retirement of a platform, and it just happened to be the Navy Links, something that I'm familiar with, something that I know the maintenance philosophy behind it, I know the technical publications, and I know the platform from an engineering perspective. Now, the most important thing is that in that article, they gave a couple of key stats that I could use to start building a formula around what it is I wanted to talk about. They gave the length of service, how long the platform's been in service, and they gave 500,000 flying hours. So they talked about how those aircraft, those airframes, have flown in the Royal Navy for 500,000 hours. So that gave me the basis of something that I could easily start putting together some more information around that to try and come up with maintenance versus tech pubs hours. So now I had the flying hours, lengths of service. What I wanted to know is what was the ratio between a operational hour, so a flying hour, the aircraft is in the sky, to how long an engineer is actually working on that aircraft, because the aircraft is being paid and has been purchased to be up in the air flying. It's not been purchased to sit in a hangar being maintained by an expensive maintainer. So I wanted to add to the formula the ratio of flying hour to maintenance hour. Now, this is where the old adage came in of it's not what you know, but who you know. I'm lucky enough to know lots of people who can help me find this information. So I started talking to key people about what they believed on this platform the maintenance to flying hour ratio was, and I got lots of very interesting feedback. I had when it first came into service, what the sales number was and what the actual number was. And what we did is we then put together that along with the flying hours, along with the years in service, we started coming up with something that made much more sense. So over those 500,000 flying hours, how many then did that transpose into how many maintenance hours were there? So now we've managed to narrow it down slightly. But what was important for me is answering the technical publications question. So now I had a maintenance hour to flying hour. I wanted to know, on average, how often does a maintainer have to access technical information? And that was slightly more tricky because, of course, there are variations in complexity of task, and there are variations in frequency of task and where it happens and how often it happens and all those kind of things. So we took two extremes. We took a very basic task that happens quite frequently and doesn't require a massive amount of engineering time or engineering skill, and we put in a more complex task where it was a very highly skilled task, very complex, required lots of access to technical publications. And what we did is we then averaged those times and said, look, this is how often technical publications in on average are accessed per maintenance task, per maintenance hour. And that gave us the actual number of times that we believed technical publications were used. And for the purpose for you guys out there, 500,000 flying hours equaled, once we'd broken it all down, equaled 1.8 million technical publications hours, as in the engineers were coming in and having to access and use technical publications for 1.8 million man hours over the life cycle of that project. So then I started asking the question on small delta points, if we improve the quality of the technical publications, accessibility, reliability, availability of the technical publications, how those small percentage improvements could have a major impact over the life cycle of a platform. And we worked out that even if you made a 1% efficiency gain right the way up to a 20% efficiency gain, it could actually equal the aircraft being in the air. I think we worked it out for multiple man years if we made savings in maintenance times attributed to technical publications. So we had great fun putting that together, but I'd be very interested to hear if anybody else has done any kind of analysis like that we could compare notes and we could look at, did you find that the savings really were on the deployment side and not necessarily on the creation side, which we hear a massive amount about. But I would be very interested to hear your comments about that, because I'm not seeing anybody that's done any real study in this. We gave this presentation, 1.5 hour workshop presentation at TDW-Live last year, and the amount of requests that we had saying, can we take it back and show our bosses, because we want to show that, this is why we need to make sure technical publications are good, accurate, accessible, available, usable. And so it's been made available now on TDIQ. So if you're a TDIQ subscriber, you can go ahead and watch my presentation on how and where we came up with the metrics, the formulas that we made, how we came up with the maintenance hours versus the flying hours, and then how we came up with the tech pubs hours to the maintenance hours. And I've run the numbers by a number of people that I trust, and they concur with the findings that we made here. So I hope you find the time to go and watch that. If you're not a TDIQ subscriber, you can get in touch with us and we'll tell you how you can access that presentation. So I believe that we finally made a great start on answering the question of the material impact of technical publications on through life cycle maintenance costs of a platform. And we have put some articles together for the latest issue of the magazine. So if you have that and you're a subscriber, that will be coming your way very shortly. If you want access to that online, then you can request free access to the magazine via our website, and we'll create you an account and you can go and watch it. Hope you find that useful. Hope you found that interesting and thought-provoking, which is the genesis of the presentation. We wanted to make it thought-provoking, and it did raise lots of interesting debate in the sidelines of the presentations. People finding it very useful, and people saying that, you know, we really need these metrics to show how valuable technical publications are. Anyway, hope you found that useful. Like, subscribe, comment. If you don't like it, tell me why. If you disagree, tell me why. Always open for a debate. Speak to you soon.